In a world gone mad, only rationality and common sense can save it. It's Andrew and Jerry Save the World with your hosts, Andrew Langer and Jerry Rogers. And now, here's Andrew and Jerry.
Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Andrew and Jerry Save the World, episode 82, The Great American Rope-a-Dope. I am Andrew Langer.
Jerry Rogers.
And you know, something, listen, Jerry and I are together. We're actually talking to each other on this episode. We talk every day, but it's been hard to coordinate the schedules. Jerry, you're a little logy today. Your head's a little stuffed up.
I have some kind of allergy thing going on. I don't know. It's annoying. I don't like it. It's uncomfortable.
As we are recording this, I just finished a recording for the lunch hour with Jonathan Wolfson from the Cicero Institute, in which I told a little bit of my tale of woe having to do with my my leg. For those of you who've not gotten up to speed, I have a ruptured Achilles tendon. Not that that matters to any of us on the radio or on the podcast, but yes, it was a series of misadventures. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, the Supreme Court had a decision today on access to this abortion pill, whose name I still cannot pronounce. We've got crises at the border and terrorists being let in. We've got Joe Biden gaslighting America on. Now, let's start here, actually, Jerry, because it is with no small amount of irony that as Joe Biden is giving his nonsensical speech to Gun Sense for America, Moms Demand Action, his son was being convicted of this idiotic paperwork crime. And I want to get your thoughts, because by the way, Jerry was the first person to sort of come out there and say that that Marilyn Mosby was a bad and most likely corrupt state's attorney in Baltimore, but whether or not she should have been convicted for her paperwork violation is another thing entirely. Want to get your thoughts, Jerry, on Hunter Biden?
Well, I think that the Biden family, the Biden defenders, the left, the Democrats, the media got exactly what they wanted. They wanted a guilty. They wanted
a guilty verdict. Yes.
Yes, because for lots of reasons, and I think again, believe the evidence in front of you. Remember, the left used to sneak. The left used to hide behind lies. Now they don't try to hide any longer.
Right.
Everything's in the open. With Hunter Biden, the elites have rallied, the media rallied, the Democrats rallied, the Jamie Raskins rallied to keep him from being charged or investigated with these more serious influence peddling charges.
Right.
And so the gun charge for them makes perfect sense. It's a gun charge.
Right.
It's a paperwork violation. Again, Reason and some other venues have talked about how the law that he was convicted over is an unjust, unconstitutional law to begin with. It's troublesome for those of us who support the Second Amendment. I guess we can cheer Biden being held accountable for something, but not for this. I think it's a rope-a-dope. It's an absolute rope-a-dope, and they got exactly what they wanted.
It's funny because, you've got the media saying, oh, poor President Biden, he has this issue with his son. It's so tragic. And, what president has to suffer through the humiliation of this and this purely political prosecution, because if Hunter Biden wasn't the vice president's son, he wouldn't have been prosecuted. Actually, he probably would have, because there are a fair amount of these Form 473 prosecutions.
He definitely would have been prosecuted for this. However, being the president's
the only reason why he wasn't prosecuted till now is because he's the vice president's son.
Right.
But hold on, let me finish my thought though, Jerry, because I'm turning this on its head. It's not that Joe Biden is, he's suffered this humiliation. No, it's the opposite. Joe Biden is a craven political animal who has wanted to be president of the United States since he first entered the Senate in the 1970s, right? The man has been running for president since before 1988. and he is not going to let anything stand between him and remaining president and being reelected president. So he says, you know something, I've got this idiot son, and who's a cash cow, mind you. I mean, he's not so much of an idiot because he does what I want, and he makes me and my family a huge amount of money. He's a stable pony, and I'm willing to sacrifice my stable pony's reputation so that I can remain in office for the next year, and then hopefully another 4 years from now, because I know in the end that if he gets convicted of this, despite the fact that the plea deal blew up last year, the plea deal that was going to permanently make it so that why couldn't be investigated, he couldn't be investigated anymore. Even with that plea deal gone, I pretty much know that the public's appetite for any further investigation isn't there. So I'm willing to sacrifice my son, right? The noble thing to do would have been to come out and say, you know something? You're right. This Form 473, this is garbage. And that's why, by the way, Jerry, I think Donald Trump's immediate reaction, I think it's too late now, but his immediate reaction should have been, you know something? This Form 4473 that the ATF puts out, which Joe Biden calls the AFT, that the ATF puts out, this is unconstitutional. I'm going to, if I get reelected, I'm going to do away with the Form 4473. And as part and parcel of this, I'm going to pardon Joe Biden's son.
Sure.
Yeah.
Although I don't think that I don't think Biden is sacrificing his son's reputation. I think Biden realized that his son's reputation was already
that's a good point.
Was already hindered, and the laptop. My goodness! Now that we know the laptop was real, this man engaged in activity that, I mean, my goodness, you would have seen in the old days, it would have been a Cinemax movie at night.
Right.
It was soft porn is what it was.
Not even so soft.
But
I'm sorry, never mind. I'm not going to make a soft joke.
No, but the point
anyway.
is that the president realized this, and he also realized that the American people are forgiving, and if they can emphasize his drug use, his addiction, that would help to rehabilitate. I think this trial actually really rehabilitated Hunter Biden's reputation. I think the president knew it was ruined, but this trial resurrected it, because now it's look at his daughter and how his daughter had to testify, and look how the president stands with his son. You know, say what you want about Joe Biden, he loves his son. This trial was nothing but good for the Bidens.
Well, and certainly in the end, because it is like the situation with the grand jury and the Watergate investigation. And you remember that Deep Throat told Mark Felt, who was Deep Throat, told Woodward and Bernstein that they knew, and the Nixon administration knew, that the grand jury indictments were only going to go to the 7 people directly involved in the conspiracy, that it wasn't going to go beyond that it was going to end there, and they were going to make this whole thing go away. And sure enough, that's what it was. So it's this situation with, well, we could talk about reputation. I think you're right. You know, I though it's interesting then that the intelligence officers and officials, the 58 intelligence officials, or 56 of the 58, because 2 of them have since passed, none of them has come out and said, you know something, we were wrong to say that the laptop was Russian disinformation. They have all, except for the 2 who have since passed, doubled down on it and are saying that they stand by their assessment that it was Russian disinformation or misinformation, which is insane.
Well, again, using the left's terminology,
right,
and using their issue set, what that was election interference.
Right.
You know,
right.
Again, you want to know what they're doing, just look what they're accusing
Absolutely.
Trump of doing. You know, that's another thing too, is it's interesting. I said this to you yesterday off mic. I think I said it to you. And that is, I can't believe the left has gone this far. The media, the progressives, the academia, the business world have gone this far to smash so many norms, to make, to delegitimize so many of our institutions, to get rid of Donald Trump. Donald Trump will go away anyway. Donald Trump is not making, at least right now, any lasting reforms. Maybe, yes, he upsets the establishment in insofar as he's present and upsetting it. But once he goes, he goes. And
Right.
and the thing is that I've wondered, like, why are they willing to ruin the republic over Donald Trump? And I know why.
Okay.
I came to this realization earlier today, actually, and that is because they just needed somebody.
Right.
It could have been anybody,
Right.
because what they wanted was a cover so they could do the magic trick, right?
Right.
They can do the trick here while we're focused over here. And that's what they did. They accused Trump. Every accusation against Trump is in reality what they're doing.
Amen.
And they've been successful.
And that's exactly, you hit the nail on the head, because right, it could have been Ted Cruz. They certainly tried to do this with
It
Mitt
could have been
Romney,
anybody.
learned his lesson. But anybody who was running for the Republican nomination in 2016 and dared go after Hillary Clinton, they just focused on Trump because Trump, out of all of them, they perceived him as the most vulnerable, right? That what they miscalculated was that because he wasn't a career politician, and because frankly Donald Trump has no shame, right? Thank
Right.
God for that, I suppose, in a weird way. Because right, if you go after a seasoned politician, like if they had gone after Ted Cruz and found some scandal of Ted Cruz would have gone away. Marco
Yes.
Rubio,
Gone away.
go through. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. Jeb Bush, go through the whole list. But because it's Donald, sorry, yeah. So
which you raise is very important point, and that is, and I thought about this too. So Donald Trump, 34 counts, indicted, right? Then tried and now convicted. And yet he's still leading in most polls.
right.
And yet in all seven battleground states, he's up by percentage points in some, and others he's leading within the margin of error.
Yeah,
I mean, well
statistically
beyond the
yeah.
margin of error. My point is that this should have ruined him.
Right.
But here's the thing. What they've done is they've ruined us.
Yeah.
We have, look, look, this is anecdotal, it's personal, but I have lost all respect for the rule of law. I have lost respect. You know, if I got pulled over now for going 50 and a 40, my response would be, this is arbitrary. You pick and choose what laws you want to enforce. You don't really have moral. You have authority because you have a gun,
Jerry,
but you've lost moral authority.
do you want to tell the story about what happened last week?
Oh,
you haven't told it yet, and this gets into, because this is where you and I had this conversation. And by the way, I quoted a quote back to you, which is from the movie Billy Jack.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember where it was from, and Billy Jack says to the sheriff, you know, when law enforcement, the paraphrase, when law enforcement ignores the law, then there is no law.
Right.
And he's absolutely right. So go ahead, tell the story. I'm gonna sit back in my chair as we get story time from Jerry, because this is a good story.
So I talk to my sister daily, and usually get a morning call, and she's been doing this summer boot camp, getting up early in the morning, and with a friend of hers, they go over to this boot camp and they're working out for the summer. And so she gives me a ring. It's a little earlier than usual. It's like 6:30 in the morning. I'm up. I'm already up. I'm editing. I'm doing my job. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? Everything okay? She's like, no, I was just in a serious car crash. And of course, my mind goes right to the kids, and, you know, or she's with her friend. I'm like, who's injured? What's going on? Are you in the hospital? She's like, no. She goes, we walked away. We shouldn't have. The car was totaled. We were T-boned, and frankly, we almost went off the overpass, but for a lamppost that stopped us. And I said, whoa, slow down, slow down. What's going on? She was like, 1,000 miles per hour in her thoughts and talking, and she was emotional. And what happened was, it was early in the morning. You know, it was they're on their way to this boot camp, so it's, you know, it's early morning. It's 6 a.m. early in the morning, or quarter to 6 a.m. And she's driving on essentially a deserted road. No one's around, and there's a car, and they're driving, and the car, out of the blue, literally turns into them.
Wow.
There was an entrance to the freeway, to the highway.
I see.
And so my sister's going straight, and then again, this car just turned.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like there was traffic or he had a rush or there was a light, there was a yellow. No, he was probably on a device, on a phone, or not paying attention, or what have you. He could have been intoxicated for all
Yeah,
I
it doesn't
know.
matter. Yeah. Yeah.
And completely destroyed my sister's car. And here's where the story gets interesting. First of all, they didn't do a roadside test. They should have. I asked my sister, did they check his sobriety? Because no. And here's why. Because he was an illegal immigrant. Because he had no paperwork, no license, no temporary identification. He was driving without no proof of ownership. For all the police knew, he could have been intoxicated driving a stolen car.
And so, Jerry, just to be really clear about this, so this accident happens. Your sister's car is destroyed. She's not hurt, but the car is destroyed. The police show up. The person driving this car has no license, no proof of ownership of the car, no registers. The car is unregistered. It's uninsured. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed something here. He did try to also give a fake name, right?
Oh, he gave several names. He also tried to offer up a fake license.
Yes. Okay. So of course, because this is America and this happened in New Jersey, this person was immediately taken into custody for a whole host of was this person not?
Again, not only was he not taken into custody, they immediately let him go.
But was his car not totaled, huh?
They let him drive it away? No, he walked away.
He walked away.
Yeah.
He walked away.
Yes.
So somebody else came and took the car that he couldn't prove the ownership of, and they just let him walk away.
My sister had to pay to get his car towed.
Wait, no.
Yes, $500.
Wait, why and how?
Because, what happened was the tow truck came, towed both cars away, or tow trucks came from one facility.
Oh, when he was gone.
He was gone. So they took both cars. And then when my sister went to pick up to have her car retrieved to send back to our house, so her insurance could look at it, that sort of thing. She was given a bill for both cars.
And of course she just wants to get her stuff there.
Yeah, and they won't release her car unless she pays the full bill.
Why? I mean, I was again not to.
Well, again, here's why. Because this was a couple days ago. They forced her. First of all, she should have had to pay for her car.
I agree with that.
All right, but regardless, she had to pay this bill. It was a $500 bill, and she's asking questions like, why? Well, why? Because no one has contacted or knows yet whether this car was insured. The driver had no proof of insurance, no insurance, but we don't know who the owner of the car was. The owner of the car is different than the driver of the car.
Of course it is.
And so today it's been a week and a day.
It's been a week today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a week today. And they still haven't made contact with who the owner is. They're trying to find the driver to get a statement. And my sister is telling insurance, well, this is insane.
His name is Kaiser Soze.
It could be any name.
Right.
But let's
Rolo Tomasi.
So not only is my sister out $500,
but time out. I'm sorry, Jerry. I just need to ping on this for a second. So I still don't understand what their justification was for making your sister pay, because they put them both up on the same record.
I think so. Look, I don't know if they charged her. I don't know if they charged her for that car, but they charged her for the towing service.
Got it. Yes, of course. Okay.
Now, here's the thing. My sister will be reimbursed if the other car has insurance.
Right? But of course it doesn't.
Right. And so here, to make matters worse, my sister is a little penny wise, pound foolish.
Yeah, I don't think you don't need. Listen, you don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, but although it does turn out my sister does have insurance because of the increase in uninsured driving in the state of New Jersey. Now remember this too. A lot of these little municipalities are sanctuary cities.
Yes.
Sanctuary. And so the reason why I can make an educated guess that the reason why the driver who drove into my sister was allowed to leave without a sobriety test, with a simple citation, even though he had no paperwork and lied about who he was was because, again, similar to Baltimore. Remember years ago, Baltimore, Marilyn Mosby, the state's attorney for the city of Baltimore, put out a memo saying that illegals would not be prosecuted for drunk driving and for reckless driving and for traffic offenses. And so therefore, I can only guess that a similar order has come down from Bergen County, New Jersey, or this municipality saying that, look, issue a summons, but we're not going to deal with this. So why put him through the rigors of a drunk driving test? Why put him through why arrest him? Why do anything but let him go?
Right.
They literally, I'm not exaggerating. They let him walk away from a accident where two young girls, two young women were, the car was wrapped around a pole.
Yeah, he hit them at speed. This was
Well,
not.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, speed. Yeah, I mean, he was making a left-hand turn, so I mean,
Yeah,
it wasn't
he was
like
making a left-hand turn at speed. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this is a NASCAR crash. It's just physics. If you're doing 40 miles an hour and you abruptly change lanes and you turn into somebody else.
So my sister called me today, and again, just to put a little cherry on this, she's like, to add insult to injury, it turns out that this car is insured.
Yeah.
All right. So which is good news. The driver is not, or was not. The car is. But guess what? The police haven't done yet.
They haven't filed a report yet.
They haven't filed a report yet. And so my sister can't get anything done, get reimbursed the $500, or get a rented car,
right,
until the police report.
Well, listen, thank heavens for the small favor that the car had insurance on it. I mean, that's
thank God for that.
That's a good thing, but not.
But again, my look, we come from a family where we respect law enforcement. And you know this, you know, the thin blue line, and but the fact of the matter is, these police officers could not enforce the law because we have become lawless when it comes to illegal migrants.
But you put the contrast on it, as you and I were talking about. If it had been you, if it had been me, and
I would have been arrested.
We would have been arrested. Well, we certainly, first of all, would have started with the field sobriety checkpoint.
Yes.
Right? 5 a.m., single driver going there and making this dangerous turn and causing this major accident. The first thing would have been some kind of field sobriety test there. And then, if you couldn't produce identification, if you couldn't produce proof of ownership or proof of insurance, you would have been loaded into the squad car and taken downtown. And
no license, no insurance.
Oh, and if you would produce
false statements,
fake license, right? All of these things. And so, so when Jerry says, I have lost respect for the rule of law. I mean, that was literally the conversation we had last week. What is the point? It becomes arbitrary in all of this. If the law is manipulated to achieve these political ends. I mean, we have already had this conversation about things like Henry Silverglade's 3 felonies a day theory and the use of overcriminalization as a way of prosecuting your political opponents. But now we see the other end of the spectrum, which is how the lack of application of the law, or the disparate application of law, leads to all kinds of nonsense. I mean, this becomes very personal. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, just one last thing. I mean, again, we could look at this at the societal or the kind of political level where Trump is prosecuted and convicted over paperwork crimes, and yet the Clintons and the Bidens are let off and not prosecuted. Look, we know that Joe Biden broke the law.
Yes.
We know that Joe Biden, when it came to documents, when it came to classified documents, he had documents that he had no right to have. It was unlawful for him then to be in his possession. And we know that the prosecutor said that he was guilty, but for his mental capacity, we would have prosecuted him. We know this to be true. Donald Trump,
by the way, not of sufficient mental acumen to be prosecuted for this, yet sufficient mental acumen to have his finger on the nuclear button.
But also what's worse is that they won't release.
Hold on.
They won't release the tapes.
Hold on, which may be, by the way, why Joe Biden says that climate change is a much greater existential threat than nuclear war, because he has this anyway. Go ahead.
But the thing is too is and the Biden tapes they won't release.
Right.
I mean, again,
Yes.
transparency and democracy and democracy dies in darkness. Where are the Biden tapes now? But here's the thing. So it's at this macro level, it's at the micro level, but also watch the news. And again, 3 teenagers out in Spokane, Washington, riding their bikes over a gay pride
Yes.
sidewalk display. Scooters, and they
Yeah.
scuffed it up and whatever, and they're arrested and they're being charged with felonies.
Right.
Now, just a couple 3 days ago, we had Palestinian pro-Hamas masked up protesters, but they were worse than protesters, and they are trespassing, and there's violence, and there's threats.
Time out.
And wait.
Yeah.
And they are graffitiing and destroying property of statues and of what was it, Christopher? I forget what.
Champions of Liberty. So it's Lafayette Square. So it's Lafayette. Yes. It's Rochambeau. It's others. But let me add.
Now, why aren't they arrested and charged with felonies?
Right. Absolutely. Right. And more to the point, right? Because it is federal property. So this is a federal issue. And when you talk about it, it's not protests. It's rallies, and it's rallies for people who want to kill Jews. Right. That's what they were chanting.
Yes.
Hezbollah, kill more Zionists was their chant. We have the chant. I've played it. And I can play it for you if you want. But that's just it. It is this total and utter double standard. By the way, you know something? If you don't want your particular slogan or image to not be scuffed up, how about you don't paint it on a city street, right? Because I know that when things go on city streets, they tend to get worn away over time, or they tend to get scuffed up or what have you.
But the thing is, it's a public sidewalk.
Right.
I mean, in New York City, you could defecate in public on a public sidewalk, and you don't even get ticketed.
Right.
There's no summons.
Yeah.
But here
in San Francisco, they had to have an app so you could identify and avoid where human excrement was on the street.
But my point is, you literally have people shitting on the street.
Yes. Sorry, Gerald.
And then here you have these kids riding scooters, and they're arrested and charged with felony.
Yes.
And we have these pro let's kill Jews rallyists, whatever thank you.
Yeah.
And they are graffitiing and destroying public property and public parks. But yet that's allowed.
Right. No, but listen, it gets back to 2020, you know, and January 6th, right? You have the January 6th rioters all being, and I want to talk about this for a second, because
I know
I didn't realize, but you have, you know, anybody who was connected with January 6th and the events of January 6th, they're all being prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. In June, early June, we're now at the 4-year mark, June of 2020, there is a riot in Lafayette Square in which protesters were attacking federal law enforcement officials in an attempt to try to breach the fence at the White House, and they're not charged with diddly squat, right? There are no arrests for attempted insurrection. By the way, Jerry, were you aware of this? I was not aware of this. I just assumed that there was a general statute about not interfering with official congressional business. I didn't realize that that the rioters on January 6th, many of them, perhaps not all, but many of them are being prosecuted under a codicil of the Sarbanes-Oxley Financial Crimes Act. Are you aware of this?
So vaguely, because
there's a Supreme Court case right now about this, where essentially whether or not it's been all a misapplication of a financial regulation.
I'm so happy you mentioned this, because this is what the left does.
Yes.
Again, and they do it in front of us. Let's go back now to 2015.
Yeah.
Or around that time, Chris Christie is the most popular Republican in the country.
Oh, Bob McDonnell a couple of years earlier, but yeah, Bob McDonnell, 2010, 2011.
Chris Christie is roll your sleeves up. He takes no garbage. He went after the teacher unions. He's not afraid to speak his mind. He was pushing back on all of the kind of liberal things that everyone's afraid to push back on, especially with the teacher unions. And he looks like He's rolling to re-election in a blue state. Looks like he's going to win with 60 to 70% of the vote. This is this is a bulldozer. This is coming down. This is a Mack truck of a political threat to the Obamas. Or maybe it was earlier. Maybe it was earlier than that. When it was 2013. I'm sorry, 2013.
Whatever it was, but yeah, he looked like. But more to the point, he was going to be a threat to Hillary Clinton when she ran for president in 2016.
Well, I mean, you know what? Again, my time frame
because
because
it was Bob McDonnell who was looking like he was going to be a threat to Obama's reelection in Virginia. So Jack Smith went after him.
Right, but this, I'm sorry, please forgive me. This was Obama viewed him as a threat in 2012.
Okay, got it.
So this is going back now even further. Wow, this shows you how these things just kind of bleed into the next thing. And what did Obama do? Obama had his Department of Justice go after Chris Christie using a little used financial statute. Yeah. So what happened was the mayor of Fort Lee, New Jersey. I'm sorry, I'll do this real quick.
Yeah.
This is prior to
a complicated story.
This is prior to Obama's second term. Chris Christie is a threat to Obama. He's rolling to re-election in New Jersey. The Democrat mayor of Fort Lee won't endorse him, although Democrats all across the state have already endorsed him. And so to punish him, his campaign aides allegedly, because the case was thrown out, shut down a lane on the George Washington Bridge.
Right.
To cause gridlock in Fort Lee, just to say, hey, who's the boss here? Right. Not you, it's Christie. Anyway, Chris Christie was the one they were going after. And what they used was this federal statute that said that it was a payoff, that because they closed a lane down, that lane usage cost X.
Yes.
And because they attached a financial number to it, that's how they prosecuted him.
Right.
Of course, Chris Christie, he skates, no one charges him, but two lowly aides, one was a single mom of four, they got convicted and railroaded. Years and years later, the Supreme Court threw it out.
Right.
For that very reason.
But the damage had been done.
They misapplied the law.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing with January 6th.
Right.
And we're going to find out years later after how many people, by the way, have committed suicide.
Oh, I don't know.
Waiting because they're still in. Do you understand that people are still in jail?
Yes, jail, not prison, not convicted, but still in jail. Yes.
Yeah, and there have been a number of folks who have committed suicide over this. The abuse of power. This would be a scandal, but for a media that doesn't do its job, and the elites, just like they rallied and covered up for Hunter Biden, they are rallying now with J6. But I know that you have stuff on J6, the recent Pelosi tapes, the recent things we know now about the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the chairman colluding with Schumer and Pelosi. January 6th was a setup. Yeah. It was a setup. And there
were two setups that were going on. So let's start with this, which is, again, there was a riot. It happened. We know it happened. Obviously, it happened. But the question is, who was behind the riot and the rally? And there is evidence that to point that the funding behind the rally may have been a foreign government with malintent against the United States, or foreign actors with malintent against the United States. There are allegations that at least one of the organizers was receiving influxes of cryptocurrency in the days leading up to it. But at the same time, knowing what was going to be happening, knowing that there was going to be this protest and the rally. Oh, and then, of course, there are the questions about whether or not there were agents provocateur in the crowd encouraging folks to go up to Capitol Hill and to go into the Capitol. The one guy, Epps, that nobody has interviewed and has never been prosecuted for this. But the point is, in the end, that the left knew, the Democrat machine, I'm going to say it's the Democrat machine here, knew that if they could, that they could win, if the crowd can be pushed over the edge, then they would win the day. That they felt that something might happen up in the, so part of it is, if Donald Trump orders the National Guard, well, then Donald Trump is trying to get the military involved in essentially a coup to threaten and pressure the White House. But if Donald Trump doesn't, and Donald Trump does what we know is the way it's supposed to be, which is to let the House leadership, congressional leadership, handle security up on Capitol Hill, right? Because they're a whole nother branch of government here. Well, then if we just don't bring anybody up to the Hill, maybe stuff will get out of hand. And what we now know, because there was this tape, part of the reason why we know that this was coordinated or that they knew something was coming and that they were going to take advantage of it is because for whatever reason, Nancy Pelosi's daughter, who's a famed documentary filmmaker, was up on Capitol Hill on January 6, 2021, shadowing her mother, filming her mother. Now, why on this day? I don't know why she would be, because if it is what's the word I'm looking for? A regular transition of power. If nothing happens, then there's no point in filming, right? There's nothing interesting. There's no there for the documentary filmmaking. It's only if, I'm going to now say, because you said it, Jerry, it's only if shit goes down that there's any value in the footage. So they're banking on this, Alexandria Pelosi certainly. And there is a moment where Nancy Pelosi is in a car, town car, SUV, we don't know, with a senior aide named Terry. I don't know who Terry is. And Nancy Pelosi is emphatically talking about this situation and essentially saying that it has got out of hand. And Terry pushes back and says, well, no, it's not our responsibility. And the speaker says, well, yes, this is our responsibility. You know, we could have had more people here and we chose not to bring them up. It's our responsibility. And that was never seen. Never seen throughout the House hearings, et cetera, et cetera. It was footage that was available to the House.
We had a year of the Democrats, their show trial in the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
And we never saw this. Also, we never saw the evidence of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff
is the important other part of this.
Colluding with Schumer and Pelosi to at the very least delay any kind of National Guard, but he didn't want Trump to have National Guard there at all.
Right.
I mean, explicitly a general not trusting the civilian leadership to have any kind of authority over National Guard troops.
Well,
think about that for a second.
But right, it gets down to the history of this relationship, whether or not it is members of the intelligence community who were refusing and either refusing to brief Donald Trump or feeding information to their mouthpieces in the major media that they were raising questions about whether or not they could trust to brief. Remember the summer of 2016, as Donald Trump is getting understandably frustrated, right? He is the presumptive nominee. He is historically supposed to get a classified briefing every day, and yet you have the media saying that the intelligence officials who are supposed to be briefing him, well, they don't want to brief him, right? And the whole idea is, in a republic such as the one we have, obviously the president's supposed to get a classified briefing every day. That's supposed to happen. But because this is what happened in the 1960s, one side was getting the briefings and it would put them at an advantage. So somebody made the decision, well, we have to allow the presumptive candidate of the party that is out of power to get those briefings as well. Because anyway, that's just it. So Donald Trump is not being given these briefings. Then, of course, he gets into power and there is the pushback from the intelligence community. They still don't want to brief him. You have the FBI director saying, we're going to take advantage of chaos over in the White House to go and conduct an interview of the national security advisor. And then, of course, they pull the rug out from under the national security advisor. So there's a whole host of things that are being done.
We'll go back there. The FBI, the Department of Justice, right, they went after the national security advisor, and they had nothing on him, by the way.
Right. They had
Except
nothing on him.
they threatened his son.
Right. They had an allegation. In fact, if you go back and you look at the notes of the folks who went over to interview Mike Flynn, General Flynn, they came back to justice and they said, yeah, there's no there. You know, we've had this. There may be some kind of a paperwork violation, but it's not, you know, there's no intent there, blah, 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 blah. And so somebody above these two field agents said, no, we've got them. This is going to completely mess up their ability to conduct foreign policy. So we're going to go after him. And so, yeah, so they threatened Flynn's son. Sorry, go ahead, Jerry. You're raising your hand.
The left continually uses two words: insurrection and coup.
Yes.
What did they do?
Right.
There are two types of coups, right? There's
Yes.
the coup where you have a significant part of the military on your side.
There is the coup d'etat and there is the coup de grace. Go ahead.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And one is when your military doesn't fight for you,
Yes.
and just gives up, or the other
Right.
is when your military turns against you, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
this is what happened with Trump.
Yes.
What was January 6th when the political establishment and the Joint Chiefs refused to give the president of the United States timely information and commander in chief authority over the National Guard? What is that?
Listen, let me take it a step further back, Jerry, and let's say, how about when you have the progressive power structure collaborating with the medical world and the medical bureaucracy to essentially upend an entire presidency, right? And remember, it all goes back to this. Rahm Emanuel said it best: you never let a crisis go to waste. And so we have this. Now, again, I'm not saying that it was, I want to be really clear. I'm not being snarky about this. I am not saying that COVID-19 was purposefully released from the Wuhan lab. I'm not saying that at all. We know that there was a decision made to fund gain-of-function research at Wuhan. We know that lab in Wuhan, China, had substandard security measures, health security measures, protocols. And so while we can't prove it, we know that there is a very strong likelihood that the virus escaped from that lab, right? That it's much too coincidental to say that it escaped from this wet works market, whatever.
Right.
The point is, you have this novel coronavirus that comes and gets released. We don't know what it's going to do, but all of a sudden, the medical establishment
breaks with all protocol and pandemic planning. Remember,
right.
The idea of shutting down the economy is not part of any pandemic planning.
Because when it had been discussed, because when it had been discussed during the H1N1 bird flu, and I talked to government officials and I told them, I was one of many people who told them, if you shut down the economy, you will destroy the economy. So they were warned off. Go ahead, Jerry.
No, but the thing is that they broke protocol.
Right.
They broke with following the science and the data. And because this was an opportunity to get Trump.
Right.
We politicized the pandemic. We weaponized the public health system. We censored citizens and businesses. We censorship from and here's the thing too: Trump was the president.
Yes.
Yet his own Department of Justice and his intelligence, or the apparatus around him, was pressuring social media companies to censor speech that didn't go along with the Fauci protocols.
Right. And that's exactly it. It was
a coup.
It was a situation in which, and it came out of left field, right? Trump expected and understood that folks at Justice and folks in the intelligence community didn't like him. We're not necessarily serving him in the best way possible. It's part of the reason why Mike Pompeo went over to CIA, so that he can get somebody over there who at least he had a relationship with, who could watch these things. And so, you have this situation, but then all of a sudden we have this health crisis, and it's not something that Donald Trump had any expertise in. And sure enough, he had good people over at HHS who could do things, but they were hamstrung by all of a sudden the public health apparatus in the United States that has long been in the hands of the Democratic progressives, and they got their feelers out. And all of a sudden, all of these people in the healthcare world who hate conservatives and who hate Donald Trump especially, well, they can turn around and they can now weaponize this crisis against him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's unbelievable what has happened in our country since around 2014, 2015. It started with, or accelerated with, Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Barack Obama weaponized the IRS. He weaponized the Department of Justice. We know this to be true. And Joe Biden has taken that example and has put it into overdrive.
Well, everything, right? And we now have the proof in terms of the regulatory side, and I want to come back to specifically what you're talking about, Jerry. I've run numbers this week, crunched the data. Obama grew the regulatory state by 10% per year for his 8 years of his presidency, just under 10%. Joe Biden has grown it just under 15%. So additional 50% acceleration rate on the growth of the federal regulatory state. But I want to be really clear, because you raise an important point. The issue of lawfare is not new. It's not new to Biden. It's not new to the Democrats. This goes back to the Obama administration, and it's not just things like the IRS scandal. And you mentioned over the weekend on your show, Jerry, Operation Choke Point, and how that was used. And there was a lawfare component to it. But it's also when, and this gets into Soros and the Soros research, it's the issue of attorneys general around the country going after and pursuing legal investigations against think tanks, offering up a narrative that they didn't agree with on climate change and climate change policy. The CEIs of the world getting subpoenaed, right? You had Operation Choke Point, which had a component of going after, nonprofits that if they could label as being engaged in fraudulent behavior, right? If someone deems that a think tank is not putting out the truth, well, then they could turn around and say, okay, well, we're gonna pressure banks and credit card payment processors to shut down their accounts. Isn't that going on right now, Jerry? I mean, I'm just trying to think.
Well, interesting, right? Because the left, its target right now is the legitimacy of the Supreme Court.
Right.
And you had just recently up in New York, you had the New York state government going after the NRA and choking them off of their financial access to their financial institutions. The Supreme Court came in 9-0 and said that this was a violation of free speech and undid it 9-0.
Right.
And then just today, another 9-0 Supreme Court decision having to do with abortion, the abortion pill. And what I find interesting about
Mifesto, how do you pronounce it? Do you have any idea?
I'm not even going to try.
Let's say Mifesto.
Whatever it is. Regardless, it's a medicine you take in 2 doses or in 2 parts that causes an abortion, a spontaneous abortion. And so these doctors sued the FDA, saying that, again, not that the pill should be illegal, but the FDA skipped over safety protocols in order to get the pill FDA approved.
Right.
Now, the Supreme Court threw it out because the doctors didn't have standing. But again, it's 9-0. I say that again because the left wants us to believe that this court is somehow captured by right-wing zealots and lunatics, Alito and Kavanaugh and Thomas. And if they can't get Alito, they'll go after his wife. They can't get Thomas, they'll go after his wife. They can't get Kavanaugh, they'll go stalk him and try to break into his house. How the left has attacked the Supreme Court is chilling and should be a red flag for any American who cares 100%. About the rule of law. But the irony is that we were told that this 9-0 case go back now and read what they were saying at the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other places, the Washingtonian, the Hill, the Politico, the Axios. They were saying that the court's going to force this abortion pill off the market.
Right.
Well, and this is why we should pack the court. This is why they should recuse themselves. This is why Alito is a lunatic, and the flag and all the rest of it. It turns out the court did its job, 9-0.
Yeah.
And again, I did some quick accounting in terms of 40%, roughly 40% of Supreme Court decisions are 9-0.
Right. Yeah.
40. I mean that. And the vast majority of cases are 7-2, 8-1, 9-0. But see, the left, look, Andrew, they're going to win. They're going to get their way. And
they're going to get their. Sorry, go. They're going to get their way in two ways, right? Either they get the decisions that they want, or they change the makeup of the court to get the decisions
break the
that they want.
court.
Yeah.
They will break the court.
Yeah.
I don't understand again why average citizens, it's happening in front of us, why they just don't get that the Democrats are a threat to democracy, a threat to the republic, a threat to liberty. It is plain as day. And here's the answer to it. Just real quick. It's because too many Democrats or too many people, even independents, they care too much about fucking and screwing. And there, I said a bad word. They're so
sorry, Geraldine. Geraldine, that's your son who said it, not me.
They're so hung up on pride, on transgenderism, on abortion, on sex, on pornography. That is their focus. And they're willing to give up everything else because they don't want someone to say, marriage is between one man and one woman. They don't want someone to say that maybe it's a bad policy. It's inhumane to abort a child 9 months in utero. They don't want to be told those things. This is licentiousness.
Let me take it in a slightly different direction, right? Some of it is morality, but I think it's about bread and circuses. It's about bread and circuses. It's about numbing the populace through their dopamine centers, right? You get them so spun up on their entertainment or about what titillates or about what turns them on or what have you.
Yes.
But at the same time, they're not going to pay attention to it when you take away their liberties in other ways, right? As they consolidate their power. Because to me, right, yes, it's about licentiousness on these kinds of issues, but at the same time, hoping and understanding that you're not going to notice as your actual rights get eroded away, right? And the power grows. Power is the motivation. I don't think the motivation in the end, I mean, some of it is about destroying, civil society, but it's about destroying civil society so that they can consolidate power.
But don't confuse what I said, and that is, I agree with you. The elites who are putting forward the bread and circuses, so to speak, they're relying upon people's need of gratification. Look, think about Pride Month. We're in June. Pride Month is about celebrating your sexual desire.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
What are we doing in our schools, in our public libraries, in our culture,
Ryan, Jerry,
in our businesses?
This is the part of the problem is that again, it is the left, and I want to, because this is a good dovetail into, I want to talk a little bit about my high school reunion. It is about the left thinking that people are only defined, like your entirety is defined by some arbitrary aspect of your being, right? Whether it is you're defined by your skin color or your gender, right? Your biological gender, or in their views, the gender you choose to be, or who you choose to love or who you choose to have sex with. That is everything. You are in a box. So you are gay. So you're in this box and you have this gay pride month, or, you are a woman, or you're Latino, or you're black, or you are shut out of society because you are a straight white male. And we're going because you have those three characteristics, we're going to shunt you away. And real quick, because I do want to use this as an entree. I had a lovely time at my high school reunion last weekend. Two separate events. Saw a lot of my classmates. Did not really talk about politics, and it's funny because as I'm driving to DC a week ago, and Jerry is talking to me about what happened with his sister, he also says, "Oh, hey, by the way, I know you're up to New York tomorrow. Did you see the story about your high school in the New York Post?" And about another controversy there, and they're struggling with the Palestinian issue and propagandizing and perceived propagandizing amongst teachers, etc. And one of the things that came up was, to me, what marked the difference between when I went to school at Fieldston and what is going on now. And 9 years ago, again, another controversial move, Fieldston created these things called affinity groups, where you would gather together based upon some arbitrary characteristic, your ethnic origin or your skin color or your religious origins or what have you, and they would separate people out. And as I was not surprised by this, other folks may have been, but in the ensuing 9 years, tensions on the campus got worse. It's almost as though when you divide people, those divisions make people turn against one another. And whereas when I was a kid, and you were a kid, Jerry, we focused on the things that would bring people together. And there was a joy in that. And so part of what I want to talk to folks at Fieldston about is this issue of, seeking joy in what brings us together. When I had a conversation with a family member at that family wedding a couple of weeks back, I'm not even sure I talked about this on the air, where someone was questioning the utility of a place like Colonial Williamsburg. And I said, well, it's an area where folks can learn about their common heritage, and it's important for us to learn about our common heritage. And this person dismissed it out of hand. If we don't know what brings us together as a people, the truths that we find self-evident as a people, we can't solve problems together down the road. And so when you spend 50 years out of a country that's only 250 years old attacking that very precept, it's no wonder that we can't come together. Thus endeth my sermon, Jerry. I'm sorry.
No, I think you're right. I think there's this sad irony that the left wants to celebrate diversity and claim diversity is our greatest strength, but they end up putting us in these boxes with no diversity. So you are black, you are white, you are Christian, you are Jew, you are atheist, you are faith-filled, you are whatever. And again, they're actually attacking. Again, you and I celebrate diversity.
Right.
You and I want to hear other ideas. We want to be in the company of folks who offer something different, because, like you said, it brings joy. It also allows us to grow and to be better and to learn. And that's diversity. The left doesn't want diversity. The left wants us to goose step in lockstep, and that's what they want.
The great American melting pot, right? Or as Three Dog Night put it, the ink is black, the page is white. Together we learn to read and write, or just vice versa.
It doesn't mean that we can't also at the same time, to use a metaphor, this kind of beautiful quilt where we bring our traditions and our heritage and our food and our music. I mean, there's a reason why ingenuity and innovation again comes out of America. It's because we have the best of the entire world here.
Right. It's you bring a chopped meat sandwich over from Hamburg, Germany, and every region of America has its own version of the hamburger. On the other hand, the other side of it is two white women from, I think it was Portland or Seattle. They travel to Mexico to learn, white women, to learn traditional tortilla making techniques because they want to bring them back to the Pacific Northwest to open up a restaurant. And they are hounded out of business because people are like, how dare they steal the magic of this abuela's tortilla making recipe. They can't make tortillas. We can't have Korean tacos, or you can't call them tacos because that there's no tradition in Korea of the taco. I mean, this is the problem. We want Korean tacos. We want 50 plus different versions of the hamburger. We want
Irish egg rolls.
Irish, yes.
Have you had them? A lot of Irish bars now have these Irish egg rolls, and
Wait, you don't remember? Wait, I thought you were making a reference to our contretemps on St. Patrick's Day, Jerry. I tell this story. Do you not remember what happened on St. Patrick's Day? Jerry ordered. I don't.
When you refuse to eat,
I don't eat anything after about 8:30 at night because it gives me nightmares. We get to Rory Dolan's. We get back to Rory Dolan's, and Jerry orders, and I'm not eating anything because I don't eat after 8:30, and it's like 10 o'clock at night, and 9:30, and Jerry orders these Reuben egg rolls and gets increasingly pissed off that I'm not partaking of them. I literally thought that's where you were going with this. I will say this much, Jerry. When I go on my vacation next week, one of the places we're going has cheeseburger egg rolls, and I'm going to be breaking my diet to have them.
Very
Jerry,
cool.
what do you got going on? Because you and I both both have stuff to do. What do you got going on?
Well, the WBAL show, of course, and Real Clear Policy, Real Clear Health. I'm going to go see Robert Plant and Alison Krauss next week, which I'm looking forward to. Yeah, we got it's all about baseball now. We have summer baseball. Girls are working. Bridget's working for a public affairs firm, and Claire is nannying before she goes to teach, and the young kids are doing their thing, and the Rogers are super blessed.
That's good, and a happy belated birthday to your lovely wife.
My Erica, yes. Thank you very much.
So just so y'all know, and Jerry's got the Business of America podcast. He had a new episode out yesterday.
Yes. Oh, let me just real one second for this. What a great podcast yesterday. I talked to Ray Ficca. Ray Ficca is an actor. He is a teacher. He's a lead singer in a rock and roll band. He's also an entrepreneur, and he runs the Washington, D.C. National Conservatory for the Dramatic Arts, for the arts. It's an acting school. The only accredited acting school from anywhere from here to New York or from here to Atlanta. And it's a real good story about how to be an entrepreneur. And he does it. We talk about it from a very unorthodox way in terms of how to be a success in life. It's great. It's a great episode.
Go and check that out. I got a bunch of episodes of the lunch hour coming up. I just had a great interview with Jonathan Wolfson from the Cicero Institute. Just so you all know, obviously Jerry on Sundays on WBAL, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Jerry sometimes fills in on Saturdays as well. I am filling in on the other station, WCBM, in which you may occasionally hear me make reference to Jerry Rogers, the editor of Real Clear Policy. I am back there June 25th through June 28th. So we're doing that in for Tony Katz on July 3rd. I may wind up also doing CBM for a little bit that week, but go and check that out. New episode of Swamp Secrets supposed to be dropping this week too. Jerry, what do you want folks to do?
Find the truth, plant your feet, stand firm. God bless.
Have a great week, everybody. Have fun, and please stay safe.